Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. I am Captain Zelnik, and today we're going to get edgy. Yes, that's right. I'm finally dipping my toes into the edginess of the world, and we're going to talk today about Trench Crusade. Now, I want you all to realize something. The amount of effort that it took for me to get up this morning, do my daily routine, and not just dive straight into the 1.0 of Terra Invicta is something that there should be novels about. That game is distressingly fun. And if you haven't checked it out, please do so. It is the world domination simulator I think I've always wanted. But let's talk about the Trench Crusade situation. Now, obviously, I am the official winner of the Late to the Party award, but in reality, Trench Crusade never really interested me. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time bashing Trench Crusade. And there's a reason for this. Number one, I am sick and tired of anyone trying to tell me that that setting is in any way different than Warhammer 40k. Pro tip, it isn't. It's exactly the same. The models are effectively just an Imperial Guard army with a couple of other elements from other armies versus a Chaos Demon and Cultist army. It's nothing else. The setting is the same. It just has a beige veneer. And I have to at least give Warhammer 40k credit for being colorful. I'm sick and tired of the era of beige and drab. Not only that, I'm going to come out and say this. The art style, 100% ripped off of Wayne Barlow. By the way, look up Wayne Barlow and his art and his novels. They're phenomenal. But I am willing to look at an art style and recognize, no, this was just ripped right off of his design in every metric. I look at any of the depictions of the demons or the followers of hell, and I say, oh, was that Wayne Barlow? Is that from one of his art portfolios that I missed? Because I happen to own a few of them because they're very, very beautiful in a distinctly horror way. And no, it's some guy just ripping off of his technique. And I will tell you this, actual artists are not happy when people steal their technique. There's a reason. That technique, that style is how they earn their money. It's how they eat. So no, I'm not going to fall into the, oh, they just were inspired. No, there's a difference between being inspired and ripping off the style. Anyway, getting to the actual state of the situation, and this is also technically a state of the industry video. What is happening to Trench Crusade right now is, as I mentioned in prior videos, it is the 3D printing singularity rearing its ugly head. Now, let's give you a brief overview of what Trench Crusade actually is. It was a miniature game designed to effectively strike at the soft and weak underbelly of Games Workshop to create a dark, grim, dark universe where, for a change, the company doesn't despise and hate its fans. No, instead, it's a company that cares about you, the consumer. We're going to allow you to make content for our game and give you a license that will mean you get some money, we get some money, everyone profits, right? We're going to sell our STLs so you don't have to buy massively overpriced plastic injection mold minis. We're going to permit you to make your own content for the universe and all of that wonderful, fluffy nonsense wrapped up in a fantastic little Kickstarter that actually got a pretty decent amount of money. $3 million bucks, that's nothing to sneeze at. And what did the company do with it? They took the money, they threw it in the dumpster and looked to their fans and said, give us more money. There are countless examples of their Kickstarter page filled with people complaining about not receiving their Kickstarter bonuses. As stated by other, far more popular YouTube channels than me, the models that they have made are poorly designed. They have resin traps. Pro tip, resin in its liquid form, hell, resin in its solid form is toxic. So if your model breaks open and spills resin everywhere, the shit's poisonous. The average gamer has about as much bio or chemical containment knowledge as a dead hamster. They're not going to realize that they have to be careful cleaning that crap up. There are plenty of examples in all of miniature gaming of people getting horribly sick and potentially dying as a result of resin exposure, of, latex-based paint exposure. This is not a safe hobby in that regard. We have to be careful about this. Most people don't have that kind of knowledge. Most people have no clear concept of it. And, of course, when you have large minis with resin traps in them that break open after you've spent laborious hours painting or a huge amount of money getting someone else to paint it, congratulations. The company that made that mini just robbed you of your money because you have a useless lump of plastic and an awful lot of toxic waste to now clean up. Thanks, Trench Crusade. Not only that, they have decided that all of the high-minded ideals that they promised in video that they would not violate, they've turned around and said, what's, moral consistency anyway? Hypocrisy is the way of the money, the way of the dollar. And I think every content creator for miniature wargaming has said, listen, we get it, you have to earn money. Miniatures are not the easiest way to earn a buck. Now, the problem is when you come out and you make a statement based upon a culture of ethical concern and moral concern of a company, and then you immediately violate it without much more of an explanation than here's a lawsuit, or at the very least a DMCA, it's a situation where why should your fans continue to support you? Now, there are reasons for why a fan base would support a shithead company. Number one, the story's good. This is the Games Workshop gambit. They know that their backstory is so old, so interesting, and they have such a huge fan base, they can actually get away with a great deal of abuse. Because, simply put, all of their fans who spent ungodly amounts of money have to look over to their mini wall after a rage session on X and go, but I spent so damn much money on it. Do I really want to just throw it all away? Now, this did happen when they killed Warhammer Fantasy. A lot of people just set their minis on fire. I remember that vividly. But Warhammer 40k players looking over at their mini walls going, do I want to give this up? There's no alternative. There's no place for me to go. So they just keep with it. Now, a lot of these 40k veterans wisely got out of buying GW minis and have moved into other things. And that's important for the topic later. But what Trench Crusade have done, and this is a very simple business calculus for any people here who understand the harsh realities of trying to earn a buck, you need to, if you are going to invest in a certain company, make sure you get return on that investment. You need to make a profit. Otherwise, there is literally no point in what you're doing. Providing a service is great, but if you can't feed yourself and pay your employees and pay for the upkeep of the job and the work, you're not actually doing a business, you're doing a charity. And even then, your charity will eventually run out of money because, as it turns out, there's not a whole lot of demand for charitable miniature game companies. So it is reasonable for the calculus, the mental calculus of the Trench Crusade people to look at their business model. They are selling STLs. Here's the thing, and I think any 3D modeler out there recognizes the terrible truth of this. You don't just sell an STL. You are selling financial cancer. An STL is infinitely tradable. I can take an STL and give it to 1 million people without them spending a dime on what you have. Now, there's a large enough market that people can earn a little bit of chunk of change out of an STL, but the terrible reality is there's no control. Elements of licensing agreements and end user agreements simply do not stop the world's easiest pirating tactic of getting a Google Drive and dumping it in there for your buddies to download. Simply put, it's an impossible way to... difficulty level impossible for earning money. And STLs ultimately will only ever earn you money pretty early in their creation, and then they will disseminate, they will diffuse across the area, and then very, very little money will come in. And Trench Crusade found this out. How do we know they found this out? Well, you'll see in a moment. They also looked at the money that they got from their Kickstarter, about $3 million. A significant amount of that has to go to tax. So let's be charitable and say of the $3 million that they raised, they probably got to actually utilize maybe $2.2 million of it, assuming a relatively reasonable tax. I don't know the exact tax on that sort of crowdfunding, but regardless. They have around $2 to $2.5 million. And what do? They, pay their people, make the minis, invest in a partner that allows them to make, basically a print farm. And with the assurance from their incredibly talented members of the industry team, create these minis. But those people need to be paid. The printers need to be, all of the 3D printers need to be maintained. By the way, that is not easy nor cheap. The people at Trench Crusade, the actual company that runs it, need to be paid, etc. It goes on. All of this money, 2.5 million, is enough to maybe run you for a couple of years if your team is small. It's running out. And they looked at the money. Their finance guy says, look, we got to make some form of income. We have to make money. Otherwise, all of that money that we had will be gone in X amount of time, and it's probably sooner than that. So they had to make the financial calculus of, okay, well, finance guy, analyst, how do we make money? How do we turn this business, this setting, into profit? And the probably extremely overworked, very tired, and 12-pack a day smoking whiskey swilling guy looks over at them with underslept eyes that are red with blood and says, the only way you will earn a buck in this industry is if you restrict everything you make and you are the only source of it. STLs, can't do it. Your own people competing for it, you can't do it. You can't have the fans making content. That's your fans competing with you. You can't do any of this. And any model that you make has to be reasonably over the top, so that way counterfeiters can't just take the idea, make it themselves, and then sell an STL alternative. You have to get the most vicious legal team out there to start throwing cease and desists everywhere against every target, against every single thing that could possibly even compete. We may even have to go and do a lawsuit against Games Workshop to wrestle some, arbitrary words from them so we can sue people instead of them. And the guys looked and said, well, this is obviously hyperbole, but he probably said, wow, that's directly in contrast against everything that we said we would do. And the legal guy said, okay, do you want to be ethical or do you want money? And they made the money decision. Now, do I think this will help this company in the future? No. I think that we are witnessing the greatest flash in the pan moment of miniature gaming history ever, because simply put, the sole reason why this company collapsed, or is collapsing in real time, I apologize, is for the same reason that Games Workshop is changing its business strategy. It is the same reason why games like Warmahordes, War Machine, Infinity, all of these other miniature games are not doing so well. It is simply because of the fact that 3D printers have disrupted the market, and it is only getting worse. Take some time. Look up full-color 3D printing. Do you seriously believe that Games Workshop will be able to compete when full-color 3D printing with a resin printer, not FDM, with different spools of filament? Do you think Games Workshop miniatures will be able to compete when the players no longer have to buy paint? I have seen 3D printed full-color miniatures. They're actually really impressive. And that was a couple of years ago. Technology is only going to get better. The the technology for full color 3D printing is advancing just as fast as 3D printing is as well. Once the full color stuff is no longer the size of a Buick, it'll probably start, albeit expensively, it'll start going to the standard commercial, the standard consumer. Once that happens, it effectively calls the end of Citadel Paints, really Valero Paints, all of these painting companies that make their existence off of miniature gamers are going to start truly to suffer. It'll be slow, and if they're smart, like Games Workshop, and I hate to admit that, they will find ways to get around it, or if they're very smart, they'll buy a bunch of these printers and start offering full color, high oversight and high regulated and quality control, high quality control, 3D printing at a fast rate where the end user doesn't have to deal with all the toxic chemicals. They have experts doing it. If they're smart, they'll do that. However, why isn't this affecting Games Workshop? Why is Games Workshop earning more money than God now? Because for all of their evil behavior, Games Workshop has always been very good at looking at the industry and not making the mistakes of all of their competitors. When all of their competitors were making things in pewter, they were moving everything over to plastic. Why? Plastic is, unfortunately, the better material. Yes, you can do a lot of things in pewter, and it's cheaper, but the plastic miniature is much easier to quality control. It's much easier to make, because you don't have to heat up white metal. You just have to have a plastic injection mold. You have infinitely better ability to actually put in finer and finer detail. They can take their old molds, use a different kind of resin, hence fine cast. Look, I know people hate fine cast. It's still better than fucking pewter. And I'm going to let that be the thing I die on, because I absolutely hated how often my old Desolator and Despoiler battleship do ship simply to their damn weight. Snapped off their bases over and over. The amount of effort I had to go to actually secure all of those metal ships, and I still have my old Eldar pewters, is ridiculous. I have a tungsten rod currently propping up my Void Stalker right now. So let me make it abundantly clear. Well, more accurately, it's the remnant of a tungsten-lined drill bit. But regardless, the level of effort that has to go in to a pewter mini, keeping it in one piece, is ridiculous. The only time I've ever seen a pewter miniature that was truly indestructible was an old box dreadnought that someone used about 80% too much super glue on. It was thrown across the room at the battle bunker in Chicago, rammed into a wall, dented the wall, and it still didn't come apart. Only time where a pewter miniature didn't fly into 50 billion pieces. Resin and plastic allows you to make larger miniatures. They allow you to make far more detailed miniatures. They allow you to do things significantly with finer detail. GW recognized this and moved all of their stuff into plastics. They don't really do resin anymore. Meanwhile, their competitors still using pewter, which is not a good thing. GW then recognized what probably happened, and this is the way that I'm imagining it in my mind. At a battle bunker somewhere, somebody's kid came in with their FDM printed Lehman Russ, because I remember seeing one many moons ago. It was the very earliest age of 3D printing when FDM was cool. They were showing it off and like, that is, and even the GW staff were looking and going, that's actually really amazing. And they almost certainly let their superiors know, hey, this guy came in with, I mean, it was obviously 3D printed, but it was still recognizably a Lehman Russ. We have to be prepared for this. And they almost certainly were paying attention, because even now Games Workshop does use 3D printing in their the creation of master molds. If you don't think that's true, you're a fool. Of course they use 3D printing. So they recognized that as these 3D printers were getting cheaper, their miniature days were effectively numbered. They knew it. They saw it when things like the Igloo and all of these 4K resin printers came out. They were like, okay, it is now time for us to change the business model. And this is why all of their new models are either drab and boring, or massively intricate, huge minis with very complex, designs to them, made to either be so cheap and easy to make that it doesn't really matter if somebody replaces them with their own minis, or so incredibly difficult to replicate that it will take at least a couple of years before even the best 3D modelers can make anything close to what they've done. At the same time, Games Workshop's profit has been diversified. Obviously, they have things like Citadel Paints. Obviously, they have Black Library. But really, where a lot of their money is coming, and an increasing amount, is through video games. And for those of us who have been a GW patron, a consumer of GW products, you will know that there was a time where GW made almost no video games. The very idea of making video games was anathema to them. Many moons ago, like 20, maybe 30 years ago, they did this. And there was a reason for this. There was a video game here and there, but they never wanted to make a video game because it would start pulling people away from the miniature side of the hobby. If people got their fix from a video game, they may not want to buy more miniatures because it's very, one box equals the cost of the video game. Now, GW has turned around. They are making video games everywhere, and about 5% of them are good. But I always instinctively knew that the day that Total War Warhammer 40K was announced, it actually is signing the death knell for the miniature side. There's a reason why I have never been pushed into playing Old World. And between the two settings, I love Old World just as much as I love 40K. I love Warhammer Fantasy as a setting. It's a beautiful world, very well designed, an excellent twist on Tolkien, but it is I even started a long time ago making a Lizardman army. Then a new edition came out, completely erased the army that I wanted to build, and then I just turned around and said, screw it, I'm not bothering, because I've already gotten so many of the minis, and this is all pewter, and it's a nightmare. The result of the shift was mostly an example from Total War Warhammer Fantasy. The number of people that came in to play Total War Warhammer Fantasy was huge, but was huge, and the interest is there, and that's why GW is now inching back into the old world. But the benefit of a game like Total War Warhammer is that you get that fix, at least for me, from Total War Warhammer Fantasy. I don't need to go and paint an unlimited billion minis to play Warhammer Fantasy. Total War Warhammer 40K is going to have that same exact effect. Now, as it gets more sophisticated, assuming their new engine is good, people will look at Total War Warhammer, because if you honestly think that these are going to be the only times that they make Total War Warhammer Fantasy or Total War Warhammer 40K, you're wrong. As computers get more advanced and video gaming gets better, they'll just make new editions of these games, and it's going to be closer and closer and closer to the tabletop. GW recognizes this. So now they have diversified. It doesn't matter if their miniature gaming element goes away. They will still survive. Trench Crusade does not have that depth of lore, the depth of the setting, the depth of people. They don't have the bodies who play it enough. So they have done the Games Workshop thing, which is alienate their entire community, alienate pretty much every content creator that I can imagine that has a lick of moral sense to them. They are not going to survive this. I don't think many of these companies are going to survive this. And is that tragic? A little. It is a little upsetting, and eventually many of these games are going to have to be consigned to the fans. But there is some good out of this. And what's some good is that there are some companies that simply will fail, and hopefully their licenses will pass on to better people. I'm looking at you, Catalyst Games. Needless to say, the situation is simply an expression of the 3D printer singularity. 3D modeling as a corporate entity. Not 3D modeling. My apologies. Miniature gaming as a corporate structure cannot exist at this time. New companies making new stuff for miniature gaming and wargaming simply cannot grow. At a certain point, they will simply lose all their profits to 3D printers. Because if they make them simply, a 3D modeler can take it and can take the rules, print their own minis, the company gets no money. And that is what we are going to be seeing. That's what we saw with Trench Crusade. We're going to see that with pretty much every other company. I am shocked that Catalyst hasn't gone out of business because, simply put, and I'm making this point abundantly clear, Battletech minis are the easiest thing on Earth to 3D print. How do we know this? That's how Catalyst makes their freaking Battletech mechs. They 3D print them. You can see the lines. You can see the print lines on them. So, to end this video, I was never a fan of Trench Crusade. Watching them act like hypocrites and suffer for it brings me joy. It means that the community that is of Trench Crusade has enough spine to recognize when they are being screwed and turn away. And if you are a Trench Crusade fan, I will tell you this: it's not going to stop. They're only going to get worse. And remember, as a violent animal slowly dies of its self-inflicted injuries, it only gets more dangerous. So my answer to all of you: save your money, watch the light show, come play some BFG with the rest of us. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next video.